GRDA buys wind power from several companies. Dan Sullivan with GRDA and Steve Stadler, a professor of geography at Oklahoma State University and the state geographer of Oklahoma. Kind of a redundancy there, but they're joining us. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Oh, good to be here.
Good
Thank
to have
you,
you.
Sam. Glad to be here.
First of all, I'll get to you in just a second, so sit tight. Don't go anywhere. Grand River Dam Authority is what? Tell me what we're talking about so folks understand.
Sure, we're a state agency formulated in 1935 by an act of the Oklahoma legislature. Our first project was a Pensacola project, which creates the Grand Lake. We have a mission to be a conservation and reclamation district in the state, to take care of the waters of the Neosho River, and to provide electricity. Mm-hmm. So most of our sales are wholesale sales to cities like Claremore, where we provide them electricity, then they have the distribution system that takes it to their end user and ultimate customer.
How do you generate that electricity?
Well, we have three hydro projects. We have 2 coal units. We have an interest in a natural gas-fired combined cycle plant in Luther, Oklahoma, that's operated by OG&E. It's called the Redbud plant. And then we have some wind power that we purchase from projects across the state.
So whoever decided GRDA needed to be formed was a pretty smart fella.
Well, we think so. We think it's a great opportunity. Not only has the lake itself created a lot of economic development by itself, but our ability to provide the cities that we serve with an additional source of revenue is a tremendous resource to them to be able to build the infrastructure and things that they need to grow.
Steve, let's talk about, what is a state geographer? What does that entail?
Well, I'm appointed by the governor, and it's a non-political thing. So I've lasted from Governor Henry through the current governor. And the state geographers was made by an executive order. The idea of the state geographer is supposed to be a resource for the people for geography in the state of Oklahoma, advising on various matters when that person can. On the state, by state code, I'm on the state Geographic Information System Council, which a bunch of state agencies on that looking at electronic mapping concerns, things, which there's a lot of that now. Work in various ways, give talks, help judge the state geography bee from time to time. So there's a lot of good things. It's talking up geography, and we, as a professional geographer, I feel so strongly about it because people need to know that there's this big world out there that is just not all the same as our individual experiences.
And you also teach geography at OSU.
Yes, I'm a professor of geography. Been an OSU employee since 1980. I'm a physical geographer, so I do a physical geography course, and I do meteorology and climatology on that campus. And it's with my atmospheric interests. That's how I got into the wind business, so to speak. And I'm not in the business. I'm just a studier of the business, I think. Is
it a safe assumption to make here that we're both, that you are both on the same side of the fence when it comes to wind power?
We haven't had much of an opportunity to talk about that, but as an organization where we purchase the power, the energy that comes out of that system, we feel like it's a valuable resource for the state. It's a valuable resource for our customers because it helps control costs. When you see volatility in the natural gas market, it's a hedge against those costs, and that's one of the reasons why we're very interested in it.
Yeah, I've been involved with wind since we started with our colleagues at the University of Oklahoma. We had put up the Oklahoma Mesa Network, our statewide reporting system, together. And then after a while, we realized how many wind observations we had around the state. 120 stations reporting every 5 minutes. And so researchers in both universities did a characterization of wind based on the Mesonet stations, but also the land use, land cover, and topography, and had a very good idea of where the wind was best in sort of very tight spaces, or very every 30 meters actually over the state of Oklahoma. So I've come to it in a different way. I came to it as a climatologist, and then the technology works. It's the getting it implemented. There's all sorts of things going on. Technologically, I think the folks like at Grand River Dam Authority, OG&E, Public Service Oklahoma have done a wonderful job at integrating this resource, and they clearly see the value of the resource. When we first came and sort of over the hill between OSU and OU and talked to people at OG&E and PSO, and they were saying, no, I don't think we'll ever do wind power because we're coal-fired and gas-fired, we're never going to do that. And then the technologies have changed, more computer control, bigger, more efficient turbines, and you get to a point where economically it's very, very competitive.
You know, when I first moved to Oklahoma back in the 70s, I recall that it was very common for television stations, meteorologists or weather people or weather guys or weathermen, whatever you wanted to call them at the time, to be using radar systems from old World War II bombers.
Yeah.
You know,
Right,
sure.
Now it's changed so much that I mean, I'm lost. They left me in the dust years ago with all the newfangled gadgets they've got. So the change has been intense along the way. Now comes wind power as an alternative energy source. Is it safe to say this is going to be a growing industry?
I think so, and I think to follow up on what was previously stated, one of the things that's really grown is the science behind predicting the wind. And we all know it blows, but it doesn't blow consistently, and so being able to predict reasonably when that wind's going to blow is really a science that's growing, and we rely on that. I know that the wind developers in siting these projects really rely on that, and the predictability as it increases and the technology of the actual turbines help capture as much of that as they can. It's going to be a growing resource for us. The thing about it, as compared to like oil and gas, is that you find an area where the wind blows reliably, that never really changes. It's not like an oil and gas field that can deplete. So there's a significant difference in this resource compared to others that we've seen in the past.
Are there places in Oklahoma where the wind is a constant?
No, nowhere. There's places where it's a lot better than others over time, but it's nowhere where it's a constant. Western Oklahoma is windier than eastern Oklahoma for several reasons. But it's very seldom that the wind isn't blowing in western Oklahoma, but it's not blowing consistently, and we have lots of data to show that, and we're like everywhere else in the world. It's just that we have enough wind to get those turbines going quite a bit of the time. And the other thing is that what we experience here on the ground is not quite what you experience a couple hundred feet up. There's less friction up there, and so the wind blows a little bit more reliably up where those turbine hubs are. So it's not constant, but that's one of the problems with wind power. It would be that you don't store the wind. There's no battery storage, basically. And so if you're generating wind for Grand River Dam Authority, you send it down some line, and the Grand River Dam Authority is scratching their heads trying to figure out, well, how much is going to come down the line, and what do we need to do to mix this all in? And that is doable. It has been doable. So, but there's a non-constancy to the wind. But in Oklahoma, it's a very small amount of the time that the wind isn't turning the turbines when you want to have those turbines on.
Years ago, I had a dear friend named Angie DeVoe who lived in Marshall, Oklahoma.
Right.
And I was in her home several times, and every single time I got out of the car in Marshall, it was like the wind was just going to blow you into the next county. It seemed to blow constantly, and we remarked on that to her once about how the wind blows a lot here, and she said, it always does. I just never thought about the fact that there are some places where the wind might be a constant.
It is, again, there's a lot more wind in western Oklahoma than in eastern Oklahoma. There just is. You have trees in eastern Oklahoma here, and that does slow things down a bit. But constant, it isn't. But when you say, I'm going to go outside and my hair's going to get mustard, my papers are going to blow, yeah, in western Oklahoma you can say, yeah, a lot of days it certainly does that. And people in western Oklahoma know it, and sort of in their perverse way they say, aha, we're making money from the wind now.
Dan, a lot of folks are under the mistaken impression that if the electricity is generated in this county and we want to get it to this county, which is the home base for Grand River Dam Authority, all you got to do is flip a switch. But it doesn't work that way. Electricity seems to lose power over the long haul. Consequently, you've got to have something there to boost it again, and then boost it again before it gets to GRDA at full strength. Has that been an issue for your organization?
It always is. You need the infrastructure there for the transmission lines to begin with, and then it depends on what is the voltage of those. We have voltages from 69,000 volts up to 345,000 volts in our system. Some systems have even higher than that. But the higher the voltage, the less losses you get over the same length of time or a span. But the problem is that in areas where there's been a lot of wind, there isn't a lot of load, so there hasn't been transmission lines built to those areas. And that's where the lag has been in making sure that you get the ability to take that consistent or more consistent wind, probably the better stated, the more predictable wind, and get it to the load centers where people need it. So when they do flip the switch, the lights come on. And that's what our customers expect. And that's been the real challenge for us. So the projects that we've been involved with thus far have been in areas where there's already existing transmission lines that will bring that out.
Steve, is it a safe assumption to make that folks in this part of the state will soon see, or at least in the very near future, more turbines?
Oh, I think it's inevitable. As the technology improves, the turbines actually get bigger, and there's an economy of scale with this. So it's much cheaper per kilowatt hour, or whatever measure you want to have, several times much cheaper having a big turbine than a small turbine. So a home installation is relatively costly per kilowatt hour. Now you get the big ones, and you're talking about a megawatt and 2 megawatts and 3 megawatts generation, huge generation. And those things, that becomes more efficiency. Then there are certain forecasting and shipping the energy around stuff that helps.
I'm going to have to stop you here, and I wish I didn't have to because we've hit the wall. Thank you both for coming.
Well, you're welcome.
We appreciate you. We're out of time for this edition of Green Country Perspectives. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you another time on Green Country Perspectives.